Welcome to Tez Talks Radio. I'm your host, Marissa True. And on today's show, I am joined by Wombats, who's otherwise known as Anthony Lewis, who is the artist and the co-founder behind the Otters PFP collection on Tezos. So, hi, how are you today? And also, thank you so much for waking up so early this morning for our interview. I know time zone is always a challenge.
No worries. Thank you, Marissa. No, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
So, as we traditionally do on this show, we have to start with your personal background and your story into the blockchain and crypto space. And then from there, what led you down the path towards Tezos?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, my background in art, pretty normal. I suppose I was sort of the guy that could always like the guy that could draw at school. There's always one, like, from a really early age, just kind of, lucky, I guess, just kind of was quite good at drawing. And then, as tends to happen, because you're quite good naturally, you kind of just do more of it. So, and then with that practice, you really do start to improve. So, I was just always kind of that kind of almost became my kind of place, if you like, that like the kind of artist person at school. And it was quite it was quite a beneficial kind of skill to have. I look back and think it made life easier in a way. It made me be able to kind of get better grades and things at school, because I could kind of capitalize on the kind of the drawing side and putting kind of craft into things. So I just kind of went down that path. Went to university and did a degree in oil painting, and I mean from there, like, I kind of graduated from university and I didn't kind of think, right, I'm going to go and be an artist, because I didn't think that was really a realistic kind of thing for me to do, for whatever reason. So I ended up getting a job in web design. So kind of spent kind of most of my adult life, kind of being creative in that way, if you like. So there was there's kind of an art side to it, but it's I suppose it's more design. I was doing web design, web development, branding, graphic design. Heavy use of Photoshop and CSS and things to make images, if you like. But that's kind of what I've spent the last kind of 15 years doing, and not a lot of art, to be honest, because it didn't pay the bills, and that's when I found NFTs and blockchain just through a friend of mine. I mean, I was becoming aware of it through social media. I have an interest in art, so I follow a lot of people, a lot of kind of digital artists on social media and things, and was sort of, this is back in 2021, sort of starting to kind of pick up on this thing that was happening, but didn't know anything kind of about how I would get involved in that, until a friend of mine, a guy I went to school with, kind of turns out he'd actually started to get involved in collecting NFTs and things. So he kind of gave me that kind of crash course into what NFTs are, and I just sort of stalked his Twitter profile for a bit and kind of found Tezos, went down that rabbit hole, and just kind of one profile led to another. I was kind of like, this is insane, like, what is happening here? And connected the dots with what I'd been seeing with those kind of digital artists that I'd been following, and was kind of like, this is cool. I want a piece of this too. And that's when I spoke to my friend more about it and kind of said, like, I'm going to do something with this, so we might as well do it together. And that's kind of how we came up with this idea to create the Otters collection. And I mean, there was an appeal there for me because of the aesthetics of those popular PFP collections at the time. So obviously we're talking about like Bored Apes and things. I liked the look of those. I liked that kind of cartoon comic book style. I mean, I should mention, I've completely skipped over that. Like, as a kid, I was totally obsessed with comic books and things. So, I'd spent a lot of time drawing that kind of stuff when I was younger. So that aesthetic immediately appealed to me. And then when I kind of thought about the things I'd done, like in web design and graphic design and things, I was really familiar with that kind of Photoshop process of like, layering PNGs. So, and I'd even done stuff with code that was kind of around kind of randomizing how PNG layers were compiled and things. So it was quite easy for me to kind of have that basic understanding of like, I can see how they've done this. I can see like not that I would know immediately how to go and code a collection like that, but like, I grasped pretty quickly how a PFP collection like Bored Apes could come about, and obviously felt that I was capable of drawing something like that, even though I hadn't really drawn for a long time. In fact, the last artwork I'd done was the year before that. So in 2020, I'd kind of decided to start painting again, which is obviously what I used to do back in uni, like sort of 15 years before that. So I'd come back to painting, but painting landscapes. So I was doing that kind of reinvigorated my kind of, artistic drive, if you like. And then the NFT stuff hit, and I was kind of like, I've been sitting here doing traditional landscape painting, but now I'm really excited about cartoon animals, and how they're drawn and compiled. So, so I knew instantly that was the route we wanted to take, to kind of to do a PFP collection. And we just kind of cooked that up together, and I kind of learned how to draw digitally. I hadn't done that before, so I got, like, my wife's got an iPad Pro, so I kind of got Procreate and started trying to draw on it. I've never done it before, and I was awful. But after a couple of days, got quite good at it. And just kept at it for the next kind of 3 months, if you like. And in the meantime, my friend started speaking to his kind of connections he'd made within the Tezos community that could kind of hook us up with a developer. And that's how it happened. Then it was just a load of hard work after that, just to make it a thing and get it launched.
I think it's interesting that I guess your original disciplines as an artist didn't naturally find themselves applied to this arena just yet, but because you, I guess, had the graphic design background coupled with this passion for, I guess, the aesthetic of comics, and then seeing that sort of materialize in the blockchain space, that's sort of what piqued your interest. But does that mean that when you first got involved into Tezos, you were coming in with my starting piece of work is going to be a PFP collection, or was this sort of like an early stage experiment to see how this could then, translate into you doing more art on chain?
The first one, it was literally my first piece of work is going to be this PFP collection, and I didn't know what was going to happen after that. I don't know. I think the PFP collection was such an enormous mountain in front of me. I couldn't really look past that. I minted a couple of kind of old pieces of like graphic design kind of work that I'd done years before, like for a company that no longer existed. So I'd done that, and I was like, these are nice pieces of digital art. At the time I didn't see them as digital art, but I was like, I don't have anything else. Like my only other artwork exists kind of on canvas and on paper. So I minted those purely to learn how the minting process worked. I wanted to go through that interface, and it was on Hic-et-Nunc. So I went through that just to know that I'd done it. And to like have like I've got a profile there, I was like, I feel like I kind of I'm part of this now because I've minted 2 pictures, but yeah, I didn't really consider them kind of representative of me as an artist really at all. So yeah, the first piece of work was going to be the Ottez PFP collection, and after that I was kind of like, I'll just strap myself in and sort of see where this goes. So so Ottez was it.
So then talk me through the creation of otters, like what actually inspired the use of otters, I guess, is your motif. And, what did that symbolize? And was there a greater underlying purpose to it?
So originally they weren't going to be otters. They were going to be wombats, which is how I got the Twitter handle. So because I was really excited. I was like, I've got to do this PFP collection. It's going to be amazing. It needs to be an animal. I just kind of, I don't know why. Oh no, I do know why. Yeah, wombats. Of course. So years ago, probably like 10 years ago or something before, it must have been something like that. I'd kind of been approached to kind of draw some characters for what could end up being like a mobile app game, and it was going to be called Wombat Combat. So I'd drawn these wombat kind of cartoon characters, and they were all going to have different outfits on, different hats. One would have an eye patch or something. So really relevant to what you see now in PFP collections. But this was back in like, I don't know, 2010, 2013 or something. I don't know, something like that around then. So I got all these drawings of wombats and a kind of really crude, like 3D kind of render of one. So I had this character. So for me, that was kind of like okay, I'll just use that. I can make a PFP collection off that because I've kind of done kind of stuff that relates to that already. So I tried to do that originally. This is when I first started using Procreate, and it was horrible. And I quickly kind of realized that actually wombats don't actually lend themselves that well to kind of wearing clothes. Obviously, I mean, I'm looking at like the Bored Apes and looking how they've done it, and they've got all this kind of cool accessories on and things. And you can't really accessorizing a wombat is hard because they've got these thick necks and like they're kind of chunky. So as soon as I started to put anything that had a collar around it or anything, it just looked ridiculous. So yeah, I said to my friend, like we've got to kind of pivot here because the wombat's not going to work. So we were just quickly kind of on WhatsApp just trying to find an animal name that kind of inspire us a bit. And I suggested otters, but with the tears ending on it. And that was just instant. We were just like, that's it. That's it. Like everyone loves otters. Like, and I do. Like, I literally have always had a soft spot for otters. So, so we just went with that, and they lend themselves much more to wearing clothes. So that was that was good, and it started to go well pretty quickly. So other than like otters being a nice animal and they're cute and they're kind of intelligent and they're kind of cheeky, and they're a nice kind of aesthetically pleasing shape, they've got like a lot of character. So other than that, I'm not going to kind of pretend that there's any kind of deep meaning behind it or anything, or it just started to work kind of as a concept as I was kind of developing those kind of early sketches for what an otter would look like with a hoodie on and stuff. So so that's kind of how that happened.
What I always find about PFP collections within the Web3 space that's interesting is how something that seems quite fun, quite lighthearted, can sometimes be backed by this really complex mission statement that's, values driven. It sounds like there's this entire body of complexity that rests behind it. So it's actually quite refreshing to hear that, this was like a creative, fun piece of art that you knew you could duplicate and, I guess, for lack of a better word, manipulate into different editions over the course of time. But then naturally with PFP collections, whether it was premeditated or it just happens after the fact, you start to gather your community of collectors. And that community starts to essentially embody a system of values or represent a system of beliefs. So after you launched Otters, who were sort of the people that you noticed were starting to collect the PFPs, and what sort of community started to orbit the collection?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and yeah, you're exactly right. Like the community building part was actually massive for us, and it was something we started kind of so in parallel to me drawing the artwork. My friend who I was doing it with, the co-founder of Otters, Paggy, so he was busy starting that kind of Discord community up and that kind of Twitter drive, if you like. And he did a really good job of that as well. And he was, I think he was a bit of an OG in Tezos, so he knew a lot of those kind of early kind of kind of core members of the Tezos community, if you like. So he got quite a few people kind of involved with us early, and I think that helped. It helped kind of ingratiate us into the kind of wider Tezos community. I mean, there are always going to be people who don't accept PFP projects, and that's fine. But yeah, there were a lot of people who do like them, and there were people who were kind of clawing for this exact thing. You know, obviously Tezards were out already. There were a few other PFP collections as well. I think Tezards had been a kind of massive success, and there were people who had been a part of that, and people who had maybe missed that, who now wanted it again. And that's basically where we slotted in. So there were people ready for us who were happy to kind of get on board, and just come along for the ride. And yeah, there were a lot of early kind of collectors who've come and gone, and yeah, trying to remember who some of them were. I mean, there were loads at the beginning, obviously, but I mean, a really core member who Paggy brought on was Yoshi, who's a really active kind of Tezos person, if you like. So he kind of came on board to help kind of moderate the Discord, if you like. So he's still there today, you know, helping out, and he, you know, he's really active, and he's an artist in his own right, and he's a music producer. So he's really active, doing all sorts of things, and he's been a really great kind of person to kind of help guide us through the whole journey, and you know, somebody to kind of confide in, and an advisor, if you like, and things. So he's been a really great person to have along the ride with us. But I mean, yeah, over the course of that journey, there've been loads of collectors who've kind of come on board. I mean, Scooney is a really kind of well-known, prominent Tezos collector who he wasn't there right at the beginning, I don't think, but he came on right as Otes were kind of hitting our kind of highest peak, if you like, and he's still around today. But there's loads of really kind of prominent people who've actually gone on to do like other things as well within Tezos. So there's a kind of group of people who kind of formed the Tezos community Twitter account and Discord server, who were all kind of early Otes collectors. So that's been great to see, because that's become a real kind of hub of activity for kind of collectors and artists in the Tezos community, and lots of other kind of artists as well. What was really great to see was, like, when we kind of hit, there was a real kind of boom of PFP projects in Tezos at the time, and we kind of formed quite a good kind of alliance, or if you like, or whatever, with those. So there was a real kind of camaraderie between kind of PFP collectors and founders. There was a lot of cross-pollination, and there was collaborations going on, and most of the collectors of Otes would also be collecting all these other PFP collections as well, and so would I. I was a fan of it as well. So yeah, there was a really good sense of community. That's fallen away a bit, because a lot of those kind of PFP kind of communities and things, you know, have suffered through the kind of hard times that crypto has gone through. So that's not around as much anymore. But it was great. It was really good at the time. So it was, you know, I look back on that, and it was really fun. So whether we'll see those days again, I don't know. But no, it was great.
Yeah, I think Tezos has always famously had a very collaborative environment when it came to sort of like the artist communities or the artist ecosystem. And then going back to what you were saying earlier in terms of Otes being your gateway into this world, it sounds like once you launched, it very much took on a life of its own. So what I also want to ask is, how had that evolved your sense of self as an artist as well? Because suddenly you're taking on more jobs than you perhaps anticipated. It goes well beyond, you know, the aesthetic of the art you created. Now you're also partly a community manager, and you also have to sort of be in constant touch with your community and communicating whatever it is in the pipeline. So how did that sort of shift your notion of the role of the artist, if at all?
Yeah, no, exactly right. And it's something you hear a lot of, artists kind of saying like, I didn't realize this is what I signed up for, like to be kind of always on, kind of community manager, kind of marketer, admin and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I didn't realize that at all. But I think you just learn to deal with it, I suppose, and I think I'm quite. I mean, I consider myself really lucky to have kind of found this audience anyway. So I don't mind it at all. But also lucky that the type of people that have stuck around, that like the collectors that I've got, and the people who kind of check in every day on Discord and Twitter, even if it's just a GM, I feel lucky that like those people that have stuck around seem to be really genuinely good people. They're not trouble. Like we've had our fair share of like troublemakers, and they've come and gone, they've fallen away, or they've been banned or whatever, or people have just kind of, kind of discouraged them from sticking around. Because yeah, we've had all sorts of people kind of show up, and you get people that kind of FUD and criticize. And I had people in the early days, I had people kind of questioning me as an artist, sort of saying like, because people obviously suspect that you're going to be a kind of scammer or something if you're launching a PFP project, especially on Tezos. So there were people kind of coming in demanding to know my credentials as an artist, if you like, and which was really that was probably the hardest time actually, because it was like, well, I don't have a background as a digital artist, but I'm getting questioned about being an artist. It's like like I mentioned at the beginning, like I feel like I was like born an artist, if you like that's just what I was like all through my childhood. I had like the school colours for fine art on my blazer at school and stuff. Like I was that guy, and now I'm being told that people don't think I am, and I'm about to scam a load of people. It was it's not nice. But yeah, I'm fortunate that those people don't seem to be as vocal anymore. Maybe they're not around, I don't know. But the people that have stuck around are really nice and kind of friendly, and value what I do. And now I've kind of started to kind of do like post Otez work, if you like, so like other stuff, which was difficult as well. I mean, I should probably mention with that, like because I kind of came to a point where I was like, well, I can't just do cartoon otters anymore, because like we don't really need more. There's enough. To do more isn't actually good for the collectors. But then what do I do? Because I haven't done any other digital art really. So so there was a real kind of crossroads, and that was only kind of last year, I suppose, I came to that. It was sort of like, what does my digital artwork look like now, if it's not cartoon otters? So I had to kind of decide that. And yeah, fortunate enough that those people that have stuck around have kind of supported that and shown interest in that. Then turns out they're not just into PFPs, they're also into, obviously, because they've all been big collectors in Tezos anyway. So yeah, lucky that they've kind of shown an interest, and it seems to have been received quite well, the new stuff I've been doing. So
I think it's unfortunate that you had to endure that level of skepticism, but I also think it's fairly on brand for the Web3 space, where people's version of due diligence, I guess, or know your artist protocols, is to essentially grill them to make sure that they're not potentially about to participate in a rug pull. But I think probably the reason that harassment, or at least hopefully the reason that harassment has dropped, is because you've proven just through time that you're still there and you're still actively creating, and that, if anything, should be the greatest qualifier. But common threads in conversations that we've had on Tez Talks between, whether you're a PFP creator, whether you're a generative artist, is always this question of the legitimacy of the artist. Because when you have an internet community that's essentially asking you to blue tick verify your credentials as an artist, it sort of takes away, I guess, the abstract quality of being an artist to begin with. It's not something that can easily be quantified or qualified. So I think that's an unfortunate little speed bump that is yet to really be overcome. But that being said, obviously a lot of your later work is now very much venturing down your your digital art and like this new passion of creating digital art. So can you talk to me a bit more about what that transition was like, and
Yeah.
what was sort of like the themes that you wanted to explore? What was coming up for you that you thought, this is where I sort of want to continue to create?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, as I mentioned, so I've got kind of these phases of kind of art in my life where, like, before Otters, it was painting, really, like as a child, drawing like comic books and stuff. But yeah, university and kind of and that year before Otters, it was all oil painting. So everything was just canvas. And yeah, I mean, in that 2020 year, it was traditional landscapes, like trying to be like really like just straight up landscapes. There's no quirk to this. And that still really interests me. Like, I will revisit that. So that's what I was doing. Then Otters came, and then obviously I built this audience with Otters, and I was like, and I'm still into this digital art process, so I want to keep doing that. But I didn't know. I was kind of like, do I do landscapes or something? Digitally, and I didn't choose to do that. But I think I will at some point as well. But there's too many ideas. But yeah, that point where I was like, okay, what do I draw next? Yeah, it was difficult. I didn't know. It could be anything. This is the thing. I was kind of like what's even my style? Because that Otters style was very much kind of intentionally derived from popular PFP collections, and it was kind of like, I'm going to mirror that aesthetic, just because I can, because I could draw. And I mean, even though I'd not drawn digitally, I was kind of like, have that kind of belief that I can kind of turn my hand to using this new tool to mirror that style that I'd seen. But yeah, after Otters was kind of like, well, is that my style, or is that a style that I've just kind of adopted? So what I did was I kind of looked back at those two pieces of work that I mentioned that I'd minted just before Otters as a kind of test of the minting process. One of them was like a sort of graphic kind of depiction of like a kind of cyber city. And I think one person, I think Scooney was like the one person who'd bought. There was 3 editions of it, and he bought it. And I thought, I'm going to reward the fact that he was the one person that bought that first piece I minted as a test. So the next pieces of work I do will now build out from that image of like a futuristic city. Because I thought as well, it's not a big leap to imagine that city maybe represents some sort of kind of metaverse, which is obviously, relevant to the Web3 space. So yeah, that was kind of the decision. I was sort of like, I'll just build on that image, and try and build a world out from there. Reward the person the one person that bothered to go and buy that piece from me that I'd minted as a test. And that was the direction I went in. And I kind of thought, if I create images that extrapolate out from that, maybe I'll find what my style is by doing that. And I applied the same kind of process that I used to draw the Otters. But I find now I'm kind of adding to it each time. I might use a different texture or a different kind of pen in Procreate, or maybe an extra few layers of lighting. Maybe I'll kind of vary the line weights and thicknesses a bit more, slightly more expressive. And that's interesting, because that's the style that's kind of developing. And I think I've done kind of maybe like 6 pieces now since I started kind of the end of last year putting these pieces out. I think I've done 6 now, because they take quite a long time. But if I look at them together now, I can see that there's a style kind of emerging from that. There's a really kind of cohesive look and feel. So I'm discovering, what my style is, kind of post Otters, if you like. And it's interesting. It's kind of journey of discovery for me as well. So yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like your approach since the very beginning has been experimental in nature. And as you were saying, there's a steep contrast between, I guess, the aesthetic that you've put out onto your work at Tezos versus the work that you or the artwork that you create offline. And you were alluding earlier to like you used to be a very big comic book fan, and then now a lot of your early digital artwork is exploring these futuristic themes. Was that sort of a trajectory that you connected the dots for? And why those particular themes? Like, why did those ones stand out to you in particular as roads to go down as you experimented with different styles?
Yeah, 100%. It definitely connects to that kind of background of comic book art, and also around that. With comic books, there's also a kind of collecting aspect for me as well. So as a kid, I was really into just collecting stuff. Collecting like anything that I thought was kind of suitable for collecting. Like I was really into. And this is back in like the kind of 90s. And I know it's not pre-internet, but it's kind of pre-eBay, if you like. So collecting was good back then. It was hard. You had to put the work in. You had to go and find weird places that sold stuff that the high street didn't sell. And I was really into that. And I mean, I probably got it from my dad. My dad's like a huge collector. He collects all sorts of things. He kind of he collects like old coins and things. He's a metal detector, so he kind of a
Yeah.
detectorist. So he and my mum as well. So they dig up ancient artifacts on a daily basis, basically. So they have a huge collection of things like that. And I mean, my dad he collects like animal skulls and. He's got a beetle collection. We would go on holiday and he'd be collecting beetles and scorpions and stuff. So yeah, grew up in that kind of collecting culture, and I would collect comic books. And I mean, if you think back to the 90s, there was all sorts of like football stickers, Pogs, all these kind of things. And then the internet ruined it. So eBay came along, and now anybody can just get whatever they want whenever they want. So yeah, collecting was just totally ruined for me. But I mean, even I sit here now and I've got like all my old like comic books and things that I collected, Transformers and all this kind of stuff. And I think when you kind of go through those kind of formative years, if you're into those kind of things, I think it stays with you. So I'm probably very much trapped in that kind of mindset still. And that was another thing that resonated with me about NFTs and PFP collections and the digital collectibles and the rarity scale kind of baked into it. It means you can collect again. You can't go on eBay and get a rare Ottez. So
Right. Okay.
that's amazing.
So I guess the challenges of actually going through the process of collecting an NFT in some way sort of emulated that early challenge of the collecting experience in terms of you had to go out and find what it is that you were looking for. It wasn't just a single click button and you could have exactly what it is what you wanted.
Yep.
If it was a one of one, that was the one that you had to covet by any means necessary. So I guess in that way, blockchain was sort of, it's a very odd thing to think that like your passion as a child is now sort of being replicated in a weird tangential sort of way in this new digital universe, just through arguably your own artwork this time versus you being the collector.
Yeah.
But that being said, are you also an avid collector? Is this something that you actively participate in as well? Or is it the case where you're sort of taking the opposite side of the table this time round and sort of trying it from the other side?
Yeah, it's been a bit of both. So at first with Ottez, I was kind of too busy to collect. It was just too full on. Like it was just 24/7. So I would kind of collect. Well, maybe not collect. I would buy other PFP. I buy from other PFP projects on Tezos because I liked them, because I wanted to support them, and I liked having a collection of them. I wouldn't go as far to say as I collected them, as in I wouldn't kind of go and really seek out the rarest ones and kind of put that kind of level of kind of scrutiny on it, because that does take time and dedication. Now that the kind of running of Otes doesn't require kind of so much attention, I've been able to kind of now start to kind of properly collect art on Tezos, and that's what I've been doing as well, like over the past kind of maybe like 6 months or so, like really really getting into that kind of collector mindset, following people on Object, I get the notifications when an artist I like mints something, and trying to become a regular collector of particular artists' work, and that's good, and I like looking at my owned page on Object and kind of seeing this kind of collection of really nice looking artwork build up, and it's interesting as well because I can kind of I can see my taste as well in there. Like I scroll down it and I'm like, that's me, like that is exactly what I like all that stuff, and the curation feature on Object has been cool as well, because I'm able to kind of I've made like one cyberpunk illustration curation, and I just add to that every time I buy something that fits that kind of bracket. I can add it onto that, and I love it. It's great. So much more of a collector kind of in this kind of latter part of my kind of Tezos journey. So
yeah, it reminds me of when I was a teenager and creating a Tumblr account and that sort of digital curation process where anything that I reblogged was sort of presented as this beautiful grid of items or images that I'd collected, obviously, without the ownership, but that initial exercise, or like the joy of that exercise, sort of still existing on the internet today. And the other thing that really struck me throughout the course of this conversation is, as you said, you're still sort of trying to find your voice or your style as an artist within the Web3 space. While I think for many artists who are in this space, they almost have a slightly different entry point where they are finding an environment or a community where their art style is accepted. So you're sort of coming in from two different sides, but meeting in the middle. And I think that's where Tezos really thrived, particularly within the realm of things like generative art and a lot of very digitally native or like very digital aesthetic art that's been created. But this is a very roundabout way of asking, are these particular disciplines that you would also like to experiment with? Are these areas where I guess your artistic curiosity is piqued and sort of seeing whether you'd be able to create in like through those mediums? Or are you sort of more focused on, I guess, the aesthetic style and how you present and communicate that?
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever kind of go fully into the generative art side. I mean, I've like as I said earlier, I've got a bit of experience, obviously, with coding, but it's very much like sort of front end, like HTML, CSS, kind of the stuff you need to kind of build websites and things, which is great. I enjoy that, and through doing that, I've kind of tried multiple times to go a bit further onto the development side and learn like something like JavaScript and things. And I'm very like I accept that my brain does not want to learn JavaScript at all. Like I've tried, I've done it, and I didn't like it. And so the idea of then like trying to learn another code language, frightens me. And I quite like the fact that my brain's like, no, like we don't do that. We do this other thing. So I'm at peace with that. So that's good. I kind of know, I know my lane, if you like. So so I think I'll be sticking with the kind of digital illustration. I do, however, kind of want to kind of like try like digital painting, if you like, because I think there is a difference. So I will be doing that at some point. I mean, I mentioned earlier, kind of, I do intend to try kind of like landscapes digitally at some point. So I'll be keeping on the kind of theme I'm on at the moment. But yeah, definitely intend to kind of create other collections that will house those other kind of styles, perhaps. I don't know if styles is the right word, but yeah, this is the thing. Like as I mentioned, like the approach to these new pieces was kind of to start with the same process that I used for Ottes and build on it. But I'm tempted to just start somewhere else completely on a different collection. You know, maybe it's just like black and white drawing, or like digital paintings of landscapes, or maybe I need to try like creating GIFs or something. Pixel art is tempting. I don't know if I'll ever dive into that, but it's tempting. I like a lot of what I see. I think there's some really good pixel artists on Tezos, and they are inspiring. So I like that. I don't know if I'll go down that route, just because I don't know if it's me. But yeah, that's kind of where my head's at with it at the moment. More drawing, more painting, different styles. Like I do feel like I could, like I'll be able to kind of do that. Like I'm not. It's hard to describe, really. I kind of always feel like, oh, okay, one day I'll just wake up and just make some art that looks completely different to anything I've made before. Whether I'll be able to, I don't know, but I feel like I can do that. So it seems inevitable at some point that I will do that. Yeah, I don't know. I think it just goes back to that kind of like kind of natural talent for just being able to kind of make creative things. Like I've said this to people on the Ottes Discord before. Like if I go to the beach and I'll make a sandcastle with my kids, but I'll be there for like 8 hours making like the most extravagant sandcastle, and there'll be like crowds watching just because I just can't help it. Like it has to be some amazing like thing. And I kind of feel that way about just art in general. Like I went to one of those like those things you see in like London, where you go to like one of those shops and you paint mugs, you paint pictures on mugs or whatever, and then they glaze them or whatever it is. Like I went and did that, which is like painting. I painted like Frankenstein on a teapot, and they literally offered me a job on the spot, and I was kind of like, God, maybe that's what I need to do. You know, maybe I'm like somebody that paints porcelain or something. You know, like yeah, I don't know, like just seem to be able to kind of do those like turn my hand to those different kind of mediums, if you like. But I like, as I said earlier, I know I wouldn't be able to do generative. Like I'm not going to be on FX Hash creating these amazing kind of animated randomly generated things. Like that's not something I'm capable of, so I won't be going down there. But drawing, painting, yeah, I feel at home there, so I think that's where I'll stay.
I mean, it sounds like the possibilities are endless. It's just either a matter of you sort of selecting one specifically and just focusing on that for a while, or waiting for one to sort of call out to you and for you to just follow that track for a bit. But that being said, what are you working on at the moment that people can be looking forward to, if anything? Is there an upcoming collection or upcoming works that you'd like to share?
No, I mean it's very much kind of just one by one at the moment, adding to that existing collection that's called Blame the Future. So more of those kind of cyberpunk kind of like vaporwave inspired images that I've got at the moment. So I've done kind of 6 of those, 7 if you include the kind of the one that started it. But I'm going to add to that for a significant amount of time until I've built kind of a body of work where I think I can look at and think, okay, that's good. That's a cohesive style. There's that world building element to it. So when I feel like I've fleshed out that world enough, that's when I'll probably say, okay, I'll take a break from that and move on to the new thing, which is likely to be more drawing or more painting, but perhaps in not a different. I never know whether to use that word style or not, but a different aesthetic. It could be like it could be the landscape painting stuff. I've got a real, like you mentioned earlier. You said something that kind of calls to you. That's literally how I look at it. I'm kind of waiting for something to call to me to do that. That's a nice way of putting it. And I think I can kind of hear, if you like, I can hear digital landscapes, and probably castles. I've mentioned this before, actually. I think obviously I'm based in the UK. There's a lot of castles around here, and back when I was doing the traditional landscape kind of oil painting stuff, castles was going to be one of the things I was going to move on to before NFTs kind of piqued my interest. So I'm kind of drawn to that, I think. But who knows? Something else may come along. We'll see. I may end up painting porcelain in London or something.
I mean, it sounds really intriguing because like I said, I think it's rare to actually meet an artist who's still very much sort of finding their voice within this space rather than trying to find a place for the voice they already had. So I think that makes it a lot more compelling, just because it's very much something to watch, because you don't actually know what's coming out next, and for that reason I'll be keeping a keen eye on your work. But otherwise, thank you so much for firstly sharing your time today, waking up extra early to have this conversation. And is there anything else you'd like to sort of leave off with before we part ways?
No. I mean, I kind of warned you at the beginning that I do waffle on a bit. So no, I'm good. Thank you, and thanks so much for having me. No, it's been a real honor. No, really, I've really enjoyed discussing this stuff, because it makes me think. It makes me kind of go back over and question, like, why did I do that? So it's kind of therapeutic in a way. So thank you.
My pleasure. That's what I'm here for. And I mean, I think once we start to see a lot more of your work churn out, I think we're due another conversation where we can talk about that as well. But until then, again, thank you so much for your time, and it was genuinely a pleasure to have you on the show.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you, Marissa. No, pleasure talking to you. Thank you.